It's all right there.
I know, it looks good.
It does.
This corner.
How come you look crooked?
Oh, he's
Because-
facing, because he is crooked, okay.
Smeared.
I didn't, well, no, but I didn't realize, I wasn't looking at him having it
Can you
crooked.
prepare that message for us and all these people, just us coming?
Hey, Vince,
It's been nice taking off.
Monday afternoon, VDOT called me from Sawyer. And he said, what did you want done? I said, what's on the ticket? He said, potholes at the end of the driveway, entrance and exit, and the gravel is, he said, well, the next time that we pave in that area, we're gonna pave that with asphalt. I'm not sure my boss will let me do it because it's a business. I said, you mean the place where my pastor's daughter lives is a business? That's real. I said, it didn't, you know Mr. Jerosa? He said, oh, yeah, I know. I said, well, he got it done last time. Maybe I should call him. He said, I'm gonna call my boss, and he said, we will try to do it.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
For everything, yeah.
Wi-Fi,
You want Wi-Fi, you got to pay business, even though it's exact same stuff.
business
as the
fee.
home. Yep.
Yeah. So I got the things going.
Yeah. Well, good to see y'all tonight. Sorry for the big crowds, but we're here, you're here. Look at God's word a little bit, then we'll go on home and have some pop. Let me hear you sing, 596. 596. If there's nothing else, the one or two that are watching online would like to hear you sing, so. Sing a special song.
Hi Sylvia, she usually watches.
596,
Okay,
there's another song.
if I can find it.
What a fellowship, what a joy divine, leaning on the everlasting arms. What a blessedness, what a peace is mine, leaning on the everlasting arms. Leaning, safe and secure from all alarms. Leaning on the everlasting arms. Oh, how sweet to walk in this pilgrim way, leaning on the everlasting arms. Oh, how bright the path grows from day to day, leaning on the everlasting arms. Leaning, safe and secure from all alarms. Leaning on the everlasting arms. What have I to dread? What have I to fear? Leaning on the everlasting arms. I have blessed peace with my Lord so near, leaning on the everlasting arms. Leaning, safe and secure from all alarms. Leaning on the everlasting arms. Turn over just a couple pages, 606. There's a joke about this, but I don't remember what it is. About Andy walking with you or something. When you get to the chorus, it says, Andy walks with me. And,
Andy talks.
yeah.
Well, what about the choir practice? Did you have one?
Yeah.
Okay. You had 40 there too?
Yeah. No. Yeah, a few. 6:06. I come to the garden alone, while the dew is still on the roses, and the voice I hear falling on my ear, the Son of God is closer. And he walks with me, and he talks with me, and he tells me I am his own, and the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known. He speaks, and the sound of his voice is so sweet, the birds hush their singing, and the melody that he gave to me within my heart is ringing. And he walks with me, and he talks with me, and he tells me I am his own, and the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known. I stay in the garden with him, though the night around me is falling, but he bids me come through the voice of love, his voice to me calling. And he walks with me, and he talks with me, and he tells me I am his own, and the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known. Remember the prayer request, if you would. Continue, member Hiram. Talked with him today. Seems to be doing okay. Got some decisions to make in the days ahead. So, continue, member Joan, in your prayers, if you would. I believe her hand that is hurting her real bad. She's going back tomorrow for an X-ray. Remember that. Remember Linda, if you would. She's also sick with whatever this is going around. That's why she wasn't here on Sunday. And, Sandra, what's bothering her from kicking Roy Wayne?
Probably what it was about.
I have a coworker whose husband just had a heart attack and he is scheduled for pre-bypass surgery.
Who is it?
His name is Mickey, I don't know his last name, I work with his wife.
That's what Rowena is, Sweet Rock has.
Pray for the rest of the church, that people get that in church. Better, et cetera, et cetera. Quit talking.
I know.
Anybody else got any other things you want to pray about? Eileen is, doing up, getting up, walking, and doing stuff. I don't know if she's going very far, but she's taking steps.
That's good. She's still in the nursing home in Matthews or? No. In Matthews.
Warwick,
Oh, no.
well, not Warwick, Warwick Gardens is what it's called.
That's it.
Off of Danby Boulevard, there was Mary Immaculate.
Eileen. You have to hear me.
Anybody else? Well, Sandra, since you weren't here on Sunday, but still, if you see see if you still know the Lord. Can we offer a word of prayer this morning, this afternoon, evening, whatever this is?
Heavenly Father, we thank you again for being able to be in the house, Lord. We thank you for helping us to be able to walk again on both feet. And dear Heavenly Father, we think of the prayer request that has been given. And dear Lord, we pray that you just bless Linda right now, Lord, and give Eileen. We thank you for her being able to get up and walk. We know it's not easy for her. And we thank you, Lord, that you're near her all the time. All of us, really, Lord, all we have to do is call on you, you're there. And you're there even if we don't call on you, because you can feel your. Again, we Father, for the others that were spoken. Pray that you remember them also, Joan, for one, Lord, as she goes to the doctor again, just be with her. We pray, God, interact, Lord, with the attendants here at the church. And pray that you just be with those that are feeling under the weather, that you help them. We pray you bless tonight Pastor Dave as he brings forth the message, and help us to have open hearts and open ears and listen to and to apply it to what we need to do, Lord, in Jesus' precious name. Amen.
Amen. Going to have local music this coming Sunday. Probably some of you know the person, Heather McKenzie Hopkins is her name. She's a friend of Faye and Roy Respris and other people. She's probably 17.
She lives in the county.
Tried to get here a couple of weeks ago when we had, the Thanksgiving thing for singing, but she wasn't invited. I'm looking forward to that. I understand she's a really good singer. Tracy told me the other day she had her at the daycare when she worked with the daycare.
Oh, my goodness.
Looking forward to that, and maybe just a little something to invite somebody to, okay? If you would ask somebody why they go to church, what kind of reasons do you think they would give you? Y'all need to speak tonight because there's only 7 of us. Why do people go to church?
Fellowship, one,
Fellowship for one.
and
Think they
spiritual,
maybe study the Bible,
yeah,
worship the Lord.
yeah, spiritual help.
Because my friends go, those kind of things.
Mhm.
We're going to talk about one word tonight, and I'm going to go ahead and say it. A lot of people feel this way a lot of times, and no one even knows about it. People that you wouldn't think are lonely. Type A personalities get lonely. Type B personalities get lonely.
Everybody is.
Everybody gets lonely occasionally, once in a while. Life situations can do that. Death of a loved one, moving to a new place, taking a new job, COVID. And we probably all have experienced it at one time or another. Maybe you are tonight. Loneliness is an emotion that every one of us has experienced at one time or another. If you were to describe that feeling of loneliness to someone who had never heard of it, never felt it before, what kind of words or symbols or pictures would you use? What is loneliness? The feeling of being alone.
Mhm. No one caring, or something like that.
Okay. Somebody wrote this poem. His name is Anonymous.
That's not what I would say.
Loneliness is like a piano without keys, like a violin without strings, like a sanctuary without a congregation or a choir where no one sings. Loneliness is like a blade of grass growing through a crack of cement. Loneliness is a campground without a single tent. Loneliness is like a mockingbird that cannot sing a song. Loneliness is a feeling that one does not belong. Like a pansy in a cornfield hidden where no one can see. I know all there is to know about loneliness because it lives inside of me. We already said we've all probably experienced loneliness, but we're going to look at 3 passages tonight, one from the Old Testament and 2 from the New Testament, where Jesus went to dinner with some people. And we're going to look and see who was lonely. Won't keep you long tonight, but if you would, you want to turn to those, you're more than welcome to do so. It's a heavy burden, loneliness, for anyone to carry. Look what it's doing to Hiram right now.
Yes.
But someone has said loneliness is not simply a matter of being alone. You cannot cure loneliness by merely joining a crowd. Some of the loneliest people in the world live and work in the midst of crowds. And just as you can be lonely without being alone, you can be alone without being lonely. So what's the difference between being lonely and being alone? Loneliness results when you feel that no one loves you, that no one needs you, that no one wants your company. God created humankind as them. In the beginning, he created them, us. Not just him or her, even though we know he created him and her. But he created us to belong together, not in isolation. He created us to be partners, helpers, living, working together. He created the church and all the stuff that goes along with that, community and fellowship. You know, that was the first word brought up when we say, why do we go to church? Two greatest commandments are, and anybody can tell me what they are? But Jesus told us the two greatest commandments.
Love thy neighbor as yourself.
And what's the first one?
Love
Love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and your neighbor as yourself. I wish I could stand before you tonight and just say, if you love God with all your heart, you'll never be alone. Some writers have said that, but I think you're wrong.
You know, he's with you, but I mean, he's not a person that we can see. But his presence, you can feel it.
Yep. Let's go to Leviticus for just a minute, okay? Leviticus 19. And if anybody wants to read a little bit, I'll let you. Leviticus chapter 19. And there are 3 or 4 verses there. I didn't write all of this, I did too. Verse 10, verse 14, and verse 33 and 34. Anybody want to read those for us? Leviticus chapter 19, verse 10.
Do not strip a debtor of solid grace, leaving for the poor and the enemy. I am the Lord your God.
Verse 14.
Do not curse the deaf or put a stumbling block in front of the blind, but you are to fear your God. I am the Lord.
Verse 33 and 34.
When an alien resides with you in your land, you must not oppress him. You will regard the alien who resides with you as a native born among you. You are to love him as yourself, for you were aliens in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God.
You notice all 3 of those phrases say, I am the Lord your God. Fear the Lord your God. I am the Lord your God. And the central theme of the book of Leviticus, and well, the whole Bible, is God's holiness. Be holy because I am holy. He tells us that. He calls us to be a kingdom of priests, a holy nation. In those 3 verses, he talks about taking care of strangers. Don't take everything out of the field, leave some for the poor people. You know, those kind of things, you know. And if you read down through the rest of the there's all kind of good stuff there. You should do no injustice in your judgment. You know, do not be partial to the poor nor honor the person of might. You should not hate your brother. And you rebuke your neighbor, but don't bear sin to God forbid. And on you go. You know, and in chapter 19, holiness, it not only is a quality of His being, I am the Lord your God. We're His children, and we're supposed to be holy. Let's go to Matthew chapter 9. Matthew chapter 9. I'm not going to preach to you tonight, so, you know. Verses 9 through 13, if you would. Matthew chapter 9, verses 9 through 13. New Testament.
Yeah, definitely.
Matthew chapter 9, verse 9 through 13.
Okay.
As Jesus went on from there, he saw a man named Matthew sitting at the toll booth, and he said to him, "Follow," and he got up and followed him. While he was reclining at the table in the house, many tax collectors and sinners came to eat with Jesus and his disciples. When the Pharisees saw this, they asked his disciples, "Why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners?" Now when he heard this, he said, "It is not to be the doctor, but those who are sick. Though they earn I desire mercy and not sacrifice, for I did come to call the righteous to sinners.
Did you ever read this and think, who's next in line at that tax collector's booth when Matthew gets up and leaves? We're in the midst of paying our personal property taxes. That's what Matthew did. He collected taxes. And immediately after following Jesus, they go to his house and have dinner, and all these sinners and bad people are there and everything else. And the good people, the Pharisees and the Sadducees and all the other C's, they come in and criticize Jesus for eating with these. Look at those people you're eating with. You think some of them were lonely? Luke chapter 14. Luke chapter 14, verses 12 through 14. And this one, Jesus is asked at a dinner. This time he's home in the home of a prominent Pharisee, not a tax collector, but a Pharisee, okay? The spiritual people of the day. And he uses the things that happen at dinner to teach a couple of lessons to these people. He raises the question about the guest list. Who did you invite? He made an observation of those who were not invited, the poor, the crippled, the lame, and he talks about that word hospitality. Luke chapter 14, verses 12 through 14.
I got it.
Go ahead.
Then he also said to him who invited him, when you give a dinner or a supper, do not ask your friends, your brothers, your relatives, nor rich neighbors, lest they also invite you back and you be repaid. But when you give a feast, invite the poor, the maimed, the lame, the blind, and you will be blessed because they cannot repay you. For you shall be repaid at the resurrection of the just.
Did you ever sit down when you're reading the Bible and make a list of what's going on or write stuff down with notes? Make me a list now of what we have just read, all three of those passages. What kind of people were in them? In the one in Leviticus, he said, leave stuff in the corners of the fields. Farmers still do that.
Well-to-do people.
For what? So the aliens can come by, those people passing through. Remember that. They didn't have interstates back then.
No.
And they needed something to eat. He said, leave some of the stuff there for them. So there's aliens. What kind of other people are mentioned in these verses? Not just the old. There's the poor,
Yeah. Blind.
blind, lame, sinners, crippled, tax collectors,
Yes.
What do we have today as a modern equivalent to them?
The ones that are on the streets and street people.
We see advertisements, especially right now, this time of year, on TV, just $19 a month will take care of this, homeless people. Yesterday was Giving Tuesday. They got a designation for every day of the week now. They got Black Friday and Computer Monday and Giving Tuesday. Wednesday is going to church day. I'm sorry. When Jesus said these words, or not Jesus, but it was written in Hebrews, do not forget to entertain strangers, for by so doing, some people have entertained angels without knowing it. You ever have anybody stand at your door dressed as an angel?
No, but you can have an angel came, I believe, to my daughter. I was down at that time, one time, you think about it, and something had happened, and she was very concerned about it too, and she had someone that came, and the room that she's in, you had to go in to see her. There's no way out. You had to turn around and go back out. Well, he came, this man, I forget now how he talked with her, but it made her feel better about the situation. And she never saw him leave. Never saw him leave. So I said, Sheila, her angel came to you.
There's a lot of stuff we don't understand,
No,
Even if they're not specifically an angel that comes from heaven, how are we to treat them? Well, what's our motivation as Christians to minister to the outcast, the downtrodden? And we're going to get to that word loneliness in just a minute here, okay, eventually. But what's our motivation for doing anything we do? Y'all are so talkative tonight. God's love. I was impressed with those three passages in the Old Testament because over and over it said, I am the Lord your God. I am the Lord your God. And when he says, I love you, therefore you're supposed to love others, how do we put into action, that we're taught to, especially nowadays, we're taught to avoid strangers, fear strangers, on and on and on. How are we supposed to love on people? How do you feel, and maybe this is a bad question to ask, how do you feel when you drive through Walmart and there's a lady standing there with a little sign with two kids sitting next to her and,
Well, sometimes you wonder if it's really the real thing.
yeah,
I mean,
we
that's,
have to,
yeah,
but,
you don't know.
we don't.
No. That, I mean, you might give sometime, but then you turn around, I mean, someone might start staying there. And then someone won't. So, I don't know, this man that draws his pictures doesn't have any, it's on, so you just, you call it rock.
Mhm.
I mean, he's not, he sells his pictures, so.
It's difficult to know, to use wisdom, I understand that.
Yeah.
We came this afternoon and on the answering machine at the church, there's, hello, this is so-and-so, and I need some money to help pay for my electric bill. And we get them all the time, especially this time of year. Would you be able to help us out, stuff like that? How do you decide who is really, I mean, most of us can't afford to help everybody in the world. If Jesus were among us today in a physical body, where would he be ministering to people?
To the ones that are downcast, I think.
Don't you think he would go to Joel Osteen's church, help them out?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I think so.
I mean, I'm not trying to make fun, I'm just,
Well, that's where he went when he was, on earth. He went to the ones that he felt that needed it.
yeah.
He didn't go to the, well, he put them down sometimes if they were doing things he thought they shouldn't do.
I want to ask you about a half a dozen questions here, and since y'all are being so talkative tonight, I know you're going to answer real quick. Try to fight over to answer them, okay? I just want to throw them out at you. How can people, and that's a stupid question because I've been there, probably some sitting at these tables have been there. How can people be surrounded by people all the time with activity and hustle and bustle and still be lonely? Why do people sometimes build walls around their lives so that they aren't hurt by other people, and then I don't know how to word that, they become their own cause of loneliness. A lot of people are that way.
Yeah.
What's the difference between being lonely and being alone?
If you're alone, you don't have anyone around you in your house or whatever. Being lonely is within, inside, I think. And you can be around a lot of people and still feel lonely inside. I don't know how to experience that. I know he came back to the house and I was asleep and something woke me up and I saw a picture and I think I told Rowena, I said, it looked like God, Jesus. So I told her, so I don't know what that was all about. But it was,
Maybe he's trying to tell you that he's there with you,
yeah,
no matter what goes on now.
yeah. Well, where Jesus lay, it used to be right there.
Is it hard for us to help people who cannot help in return? They can't return the favor. Most people, not just us, okay?
Well, we do it, if we get commissions, we do that almost every day. We give, because we don't know who they are, and they can't help us back. We the offerings about,
If the reason we're giving or doing something for someone is to get something in return, isn't that the wrong motive anyhow?
yeah.
How is the treatment by Christians of those who are lonely and needy related to the two words, living holiness? Because Jesus said to do that. In fact, the Church of the Nazarene was founded on helping poor people. Not just preaching holiness, it was founded on two principles, preaching holiness and helping poor people. You know? I want to write something on the board. Let's see what you think about it. Tell me what you think. First off, it's not saying if you're lonely, you must be in sin. That's not what it says. What kind of a relationship did Adam and Eve have with God before the fall? Great one. What, describe it for me. What kind was it? Did they have to go to his house to see him?
Now, he came to meet them in the
And did
garden.
what?
In the garden,
In the garden. They walked and talked together.
yes, they did.
They weren't lonely when God was there with them. You know, and he's there everywhere, you know, all that stuff. But when sin came in, it broke that relationship.
Yeah, they did.
You know, loneliness became possible when sin occurred. Well, I don't think it was there because everything was perfect until Adam and Eve sinned, okay? And it wrecked that relationship between God and Adam and Eve. But loneliness is overcome when life's intimate relationships are restored. Our relationship to God is where it needs to be and to each other. And that doesn't mean we're a bad person because we're lonely, because there are times when I'm lonely. There are times when I'm in church and I'm lonely, you know? But as we build those relationships, as we build our relationship with God, it helps overcome those. Does that mean Christians never get lonely? If so, if Christians never get lonely, then Hiram must be backslidden. He's not backslidden.
No.
You know, he's trusting the Lord probably now more than he ever has. You know, and a lot of our elders who go down through our list of people who have lost loved ones in the last couple of years, Barbara, and, you know, on Bonnie and Linda, and on, you know. God created us for this. Tell me what a community is.
Group of people
A group of people. Good.
with houses and all that stuff.
With houses? Not necessarily.
Yeah, we can be a community.
Let's talk about the community of Matthews. What makes people of Matthews a community? We certainly don't all agree, but we're a community because we all live in the same place.
Yeah.
If you live in Matthews, right?
Mhm.
And it's the same thing in the church. What makes us a community in the church? We have in common
Same,
a relationship with the Lord, our desire to see the kingdom go forward,
Yep.
you know, those kind of things. So, you know, the fact that God created people in community, want to be with each other, what is our mission to the world as a community of believers? Isn't it to reach others
go into the world and preach the gospel to
and
each and everyone.
make disciples of other people?
Yeah.
So what part, I don't know how to word this, what part does community, Christian fellowship play in our mission to the world? We're not going to get into the argument you can be a Christian and stay home. So I think it
Say that again, what you were saying. You remember what you said? Say it again.
Sure. What part does Christian fellowship, Christian community play in us accomplishing our mission to the world? If you will watch, folks, we've, got a lot of new people coming in the doors in the last 6, 8, 9, 10 months. But if we don't get them involved in the fellowship, involved in the community, it will be easier for them to go out the back door.
Yeah.
You know, so we need to do that as best we can. And fellowship, community, same thing to me. They rank right up there, I think, with evangelism, discipleship. If evangelism is one of the things the church does, winning people to Jesus, if discipleship, teaching people how to be a Christian, is what we do as a church, fellowship also needs to be there. Okay? The early church was set apart from its culture largely due to its willingness to be hospitable. How many times did Jesus talk about this? And I know it was a custom of the day that they would go to people's houses to eat because they traveled. They walked and traveled and stopped in. And sometimes it just seemed like to me they're stopping at strange people's houses and just going on in there. And whoever's house they stopped at, it's their custom that somebody knocked on your door. They didn't have doors, Then you fed them. And you washed their feet. That's what hospitality is. Do you know that the word hospitality, and this is not a message on hospitality, but the word hospitality comes from the word hospital. They both are together in that. And I have a good article. If we had more time, I'd go ahead and read it. The guy that started having hospitals, really, and it gives his name and everything way back, did it to take care of people who were sick, but also to take care of people who were traveling through the towns. And that's how hospitals were started. I love that Mary Immaculate still got pictures of nuns. That's how they were started, okay?
That's why my baby works. Yeah, very nice. Well, my bigger baby.
Tell me what you think of these statements. I got 4 or 5 statements here I'm going to read. Christian hospitality is a gift, not a gift exchange. Remember the old days we used to do gift exchanges at our, I think it was the Willing Helpers Party, did gift exchange. You would all pick a number, and if you had number 1, you could keep yours, or number 2 could take it off of you, and number 3 could take it off of number 2, etc. I don't know how that actually worked out.
We did it in Miss Garrett's class. I guess I'm still not with it.
What Christian hospitality is a gift, not a gift exchange. What do you think it means? It probably means something you give and you don't expect something back.
Yeah.
Second statement, people are lonely when they're lost from Christ. We can be his welcome mats, his dinner invitations, his conversation partners, his listening ears and comforting tongue, his heart and hands of serving love. Ever think of this? How many people out there, when they go, all of us go through hard times, but when they go through hard times, they don't have the Lord to turn to. And we need to be Jesus to them.
I think of an individual, y'all have to help me with this. Our devotions, I was trying to find it here today, here right on here. I'm not going to say where it's at because then you might know. They're fussing all the time. They have children sometimes that are there, and sometimes they're not. And I don't really know what to do. I don't want to get in the middle of the situation, but they need help. If there's no one that comes to this church, but it's some people that I know. And
Probably all of us know someone we
Like
know.
that, yeah.
Parents
it's-
got a tough job nowadays, folks. It's
Yeah.
not like it was when we were up,
well,
Both
it's
of them got a lot of
the
paper.
parents had the problem, not the kids. It's their little ones, but it's the parents. And,
Right. Now, the thing about this lesson, I know we're not hitting real heavy here or anything, okay? But there are a lot of people walking around out there that fit that category out there.
Yes.
So we never know
Mhm.
what they're going through. Probably some sitting at these tables tonight, And so what do we do about it? We can't wait for them to walk up to us with a sign on and say, I'm lonely, Jesus, how many times went and hung out with sinners? He hung out with sinners for the same reason that doctors go to visit the sick. Because they needed him, He did it to address their need, to share their desire to be better. Right? I want to read, I was going to sing it tonight, but we didn't sing it, okay? I didn't change my mind. Y'all know this song. It says, does Jesus care when my heart is pained too deeply for mirth and song? And the care is distress, and the way grows weary and long. Does Jesus care when my way is dark with a nameless dread and fear? As the daylight fades into deep night shades, does he care enough to be near? Does Jesus care when I've said goodbye to the dearest on earth to me, and my sad heart aches till it nearly breaks? Is it aught to him? Does he see? And then the chorus, y'all know the chorus. Oh yes, he cares. I know he cares. His heart is touched with my grief. When the days are weary, the long nights dreary, I know my Savior cares. We know as Christians that all we have to do is talk to God. He's there. You know, we know that. But when you're feeling that loneliness, even Christians feel. You don't feel like praying even sometimes. And that's when you need to do it the most. Okay? How many remember the phone company used to have a slogan, reach out and touch someone? I want to encourage you to do that. Just reach out. And I know most of you here around these tables do that. You know, to reach out and touch somebody, make phone calls, whatever it may be, but you never know what someone might be going through. I'm going to put a number up here. You can do what you want. Gotta make sure it's right. That's Hiram's sister's number. Her name is Betty. If you want to give him a call, feel free to do so. When Betty answers the phone, please make sure you tell her who you are, or she might hang up on you, thinking you're a salesman.
She did that to you?
She didn't do that, but when I called, I said, is this Betty? And she said, well, let me ask you who's calling. You know, which I don't blame her for that. That's, you know. So tell her right away who you are if you call. Just say hi to him. He's planning on coming back down this weekend. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but he got a lot of choices from they do and everything else. But, you know, just think around the people of our church, you know, and what people are going through, and people that are next door neighbors to you, or whatever it may be, you know. Maybe we can't solve everybody's problem of loneliness, but we can do a little bit to dispel a little bit of it. And most people aren't going to come up to the front of the church and say, I'm really lonely, somebody call me, please. Okay? But I don't know if you've ever read much of Max Lucado's writings, but story one time, and I want to relate that to you. He tells about a leper who was healed by Jesus, and he reflected, he said, the infection was banished by a word from Jesus. The loneliness, however, was treated by a touch. Go back and read it in the Gospels. Oh, the power of a godly touch. Haven't you known it? The doctor who treated you, the teacher who dried your tears. Was there a hand holding yours at a funeral? Another on your shoulder during a trial? A handshake, a welcome at a new job? A pastoral prayer for healing? Haven't we known the power of a godly touch? I'm not talking about anything out of place, inappropriate. And can't we offer the same? This is Max Lucado speaking. Many of you already do. Some of you have the master's touch of the physician himself. You use your hands to pray over the sick and minister to the weak. And I thought as I read this, how many times do we have someone come up front and we lay hands on them? There's no magic in that, but there's just something about the touch, you know. And if you aren't touching them personally, your hands are writing letters, dialing phones, baking pies, whatever. You have learned the power of touch. But others of us tend to forget. Our hearts are good. It's just that our memories are bad. We forget how significant touch can be. We fear saying the wrong thing or using the wrong tone or acting the wrong way. So rather than do it incorrectly, we don't do it at all. Aren't you glad Jesus didn't make the same mistake? If your fear of doing the wrong thing prevents you from doing anything, keep in mind the perspective of the lepers of the world. They aren't picky. They aren't finicky. They're just lonely. They're yearning for a godly touch. How many times? I'm going to do a study someday about this. Max Lucado quote, Jesus touched the untouchables of the world. Will you do the same? I'm going to do a study sometime about how many times he did that. He reached out and touched the leper. He healed the lame, put mud on the guy's eyes over and over and over. And, not just the physical things that he helped, cure on them. But can you imagine how lonely some of them were? Sitting beside a pool for 28 years. People took him and sat him down in the morning, came back at nighttime, took him home. What a lonely life. The lepers who were forced to be lonely because nobody could be around them. The deaf, the blind, on and on and on. What do we do about loneliness, folks? I think one thing that can help us get over our loneliness is to minister to somebody who may be lonely. So that's what God's word says. Let's do whatever we can, shall we? Jerry, will you offer a word of prayer in closing tonight, please?
Yeah. Dear Lord, help those that are lonely and be with them. It is their responsibility to minister to people that are lonely. And we should be doing more. Lord, help them, and they don't have to be lonely. They can be upset with something, but they don't have to be lonely. If we befriend them, and they know that we are serious, we would say that we love them, and we're there for them if they need us.
Yeah.
So Lord, be with the people that are sick and hurting for whatever reason. Be with those that lost loved ones. This year, Lord, I believe people are more lonely than any other time of the year. So help us help them. And the Holy Spirit guide us to do a better job than we are doing.
Yes.
And be with us as we go home, keep us safe, and help us make a difference, dear Lord, is what I'm saying. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.